All right, you're live.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Montgomery. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome folks to tonight's Discipline Matrix Ad Hoc Committee, Wednesday, May 21st. We're getting going at 6:05, joined by our fabulous folks and actually, let me see if we have any community members. No, we don't. But we do have Deacon Reggie Lyles and DC Brian Hubbard with us tonight. And it's been a few weeks since we've picked up some of this work. And so I know a big part of tonight is also going to be just kind of recapping where we left off and then picking up from there. I myself am prepping for a hearing we have tomorrow morning. And so I'm going to be stepping off and passing it to DC Hubbard to drive us this evening. At this point, yeah, I'll hand it over to you, DC, and excuse myself and thank you, everyone. And hope you all have a good evening and look forward to our next meeting in the first week. Let me see what day that is.
All right. June 5th, I believe it's. Yeah.
Yep, the 5th. Correct. Yep. And so I will see you all then. Thank you, and I appreciate the grace, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Great. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I just got a message from Miss Peterson. She's unable to make it this evening.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen and talk. So it's been a minute since we have met. So there's a lot to cover from the last time we met, which probably about a month ago. And then I have a plan for the next set of manual of rules to talk about. So maybe if we because we're missing a few people this evening, if we just want to introduce those and give me some ideas on some changes that may jump off the page, and then I can work on those. And so the next time we come back June 5th, then we have something to talk about. Let me share my screen here. Okay, great. The first thing that we talked about was inappropriate websites. This is a new section. Not a lot of changes here. I actually made it more 2025 because it had language in there like DVD players, which I don't think anyone uses anymore. But this is accessing inappropriate websites. Members and employees shall not utilize any electronic communication devices while on duty to the extent that such usage adversely affects their performance or productivity or interferes with their safety or the safety of others. Personal electronic entertainment devices, smartphones, tablets, streaming devices, or gaming systems shall not be used while on duty without prior approval of a supervisor or commanding officer. Department-issued cellular telephones and electronic devices shall be used for reasonable material purposes related to official business. When an investigator conducts searches on social media or other electronic platforms, these searches must be reasonable material to the investigation and documented in the investigator's report or case investigative notes. Music streaming services may only be utilized in city vehicles while on duty without headphones. Personnel are permitted to monitor major newsworthy events, training, traffic monitoring, and other work-related material. So there's two components to this that we talked about. The first one, like I mentioned, is just making it more modern, as you see here. But I did talk about the problem that we have with social media, as in, and I'm speaking from the perspective of the community looking through the window and seeing us. Let's say an officer appears to be on social media. We use social media for investigations, and so we want to make sure that if an officer does that it's authorized to do so. And we talked about how it being material to some type of investigation, not just some random social media thing or even for personal reasons. So that's the purpose of that language in here. Yeah, and then, like I said, document in the investigator's report or case investigative notes. I mean, unfortunately, officers or investigators do come across very inappropriate items on social media, and that is the reason for the disclosure, is to ensure that they're not doing it for personal reasons but professional reasons, and it's material and the reason behind it. So that's the extent to the changes for this section. Any questions on this? What is it, 35630?
I think it reads well. I was wondering if you, the first sentence, employees should not utilize any electronic communication device. Would it read better if you had a parentheses there and an S and then a parentheses, closing parentheses, device or device? Yes, like that. How's that? How's that look to you?
Yeah, great. I like it.
Otherwise, it's fine with me.
Yeah. Okay. All right, great.
Kathy's joined. AC Hubbard, Kathy Leonard is here.
Hello, Kathy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Hi, Kathy.
just in time. We just covered the first one. All right. So the next one is damaged inoperative property or equipment. There was no change to this. One of the recommendations that we talked about, doing a body worn camera inspection of a vehicle prior to use. This should be a common practice amongst everyone, but it's not. There was a recommendation to put it here. However, this is not so much a policy, but a manual of rules. So I did some research, and we have a body worn camera policy, but nothing specific to pre-shift inspections of vehicles. So I put a note here that we do need to update or have a policy on this to mandate. And doing this, I think, would take away a lot of allegations of hit and runs from officers, certainly. Also questions about which officer, if any, damaged the vehicle versus the other. But also we get, members of the public sometimes damaging our vehicles intentionally, and having a pre-shift body worn camera inspection would, I think, save the city from litigation, amongst other things. So that's just a note for myself. I'm going to talk to our policy and publications team to look into that.
That sounds like a great idea.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So next one is notices, 34276. We had a pretty lengthy discussion on this. Members and employees shall not mark, alter, or deface any posted notice of the department. Before posting any notices or announcements on bulletin boards, members must first obtain approval from a supervisor or commanding officer. The approving supervisor or commanding officer must sign the posting to indicate approval has been granted. We talked about that last meeting. Any notices or announcement found without an authorizing signature shall be presumed unapproved and will be removed immediately. No notices of derogatory, discriminatory nature as defined in City Administrative 71 shall be posted under any circumstance. So we did have a lengthy discussion on this. So basically, we have bulletin boards that are posted throughout the department. If I want to post something, I must first go to my immediate supervisor or commander and get a signature on that at the bottom. And if I'm walking by and I see such posting with no signature, I presume that to be unauthorized, and I am then authorized to take it down.
Do you have to tell anybody you've taken it down? I mean, do people come back and say, "Hey, what happened to my post? It was up there. Who took it down?" Will that create another tension that someone who put the poster up there didn't know that someone had defaced it, but would think that somebody who disagreed with their opinion is working against them by taking down the post? It seems to me there should be maybe a log where you say, put your initials, I took it down on such date, and it be a reason for it.
Or at the end, and maybe also at the top of the bulletin board, it says all announcements must be signed off or something that alerts the person who's trying to post something that they need an authorized signature before they can post.
You mean above the bulletin board? No document should be published
Yes.
here without authorization.
Right. Something,
Yeah, that
really
makes
quick.
sense.
Yeah.
That
Just
makes
a
sense.
couple of words
Yeah.
just to alert people.
But say I wanted to sponsor an event that's been approved for the gay and lesbian officers in the department.
Mm.
And then I come and I get it approved. And then I come by a couple of days later and it's taken down. And then I'm left with thinking, well, what happened? Who took it down? Is it somebody working against me, or is it when in fact it was taken down because somebody graffitied it or something, So if whoever's managing the board ought to, keep a record. Yeah, I took it down, and this is the reason why I took it down.
Yeah, I know what I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to think of the form to which, we can say if you take it down, then you shall notify your commander that you took it down so they have record of it. I need some document trail somewhere, and I just don't know where that would be housed.
That's what I'm trying to figure out the best way of doing it. It can be housed in like watch commander's office. It can be just a log. It doesn't have to have the watch commander approval. Hey, I took this down because, I'm a sergeant or a lieutenant. I took it down because somebody used profanity on it, and it's listed there. And then the person who put it up would know that it wasn't taken down because of political reasons, but it was taken down for legitimate reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. He knows they're not found without an so shall be resumed. Yeah, I have to, let me see if I'm going to add a section in there about also removing for legitimate reasons such as defacement, or even I don't like clutter. So when I see something like an event that it's expired, like the event was 3 months ago, I like to take things down. So there might be a legitimate reason to take it down. I guess the best place would be the patrol desk because that's somewhat the most centralized location that we have. Trying to think of what that would look like. Common courtesy would be like me emailing the person, say, hey, FYI, I took this down for X, Y, and Z, especially if it's defaced.
Yeah, that's ideal.
Right.
Is that too much to ask for the person taking it down to notify the author of the document what they did? Is that too much to ask?
I don't think. I think that's common courtesy. Just
let's put it in. Let's put it in.
If known, I guess sometimes we don't know who posted it. So person, if known. Okay, I'll work on that. I guess I have to put something in here about you also shall not take anything down if unless authorized, as in I should for legitimate things that and there's no reason to remove it, I'm prohibited from removing it. Usually these postings, these bulletin boards, because they're in the union's manual, the MOU. So this is for sworn and professional staff, and usually they're union matters that are posted, and I can see sometimes those are sensitive issues, and one opposing union can take something down despite the other, and that should be prohibited also. So I will that's good. I'll add that. Let's say All right, great. I'll come back to that next time we meet. All right, use of department vehicles. This has changed 342.95. Members and employees shall not use any departmental vehicle without the permission of a supervisor or commanding officer. All requests to use department vehicles must be approved by a supervisor, commander, officer prior to use. Authorization shall be provided in an email. So we had this challenge of commanding approval, and sometimes it's not always available. They're not always, so we added supervisor. And then we, again, made it more of a paper trail by saying that authorization needs to be provided in an email. There are obviously presumed vehicles that one can use. So starting their shift, having a vehicle for their patrol beat. Sometimes officers have to come in off duty to work a special event, let's say, or go to court. And in that case, just randomly picking a car and taking it is not good for anyone. It leads to inefficiencies. So that's why this section has been created. There's a lot of times this can be worked out in advance with the fleet unit, but sometimes, yeah, we get that problem where people just taking cars and then patrol is stuck and they don't have a car. So reinforcing that would be good. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay. 342.96 departmental insignia. This has changed. Neither department's insignia nor any representation of the official department insignia, star, or cap shield may be reproduced in any manner or on any item without the authorization of the chief of police. All requests for reproduction must be submitted through the member's chain of command. The request may be submitted via email or memorandum and must receive approval signatures from each supervisor in the chain of command before reaching the chief of police for final authorization. Any unauthorized reproduction of the department's mental insignia shall be removed immediately and may result in disciplinary action. So again, I just made this more modern with email approval, like a document trail. I think it originally said like, oh, just get the chief of police approval, and you're jumping chain of command for that, which is not how we do things. So it needs chain of command approval with the final being the chief of police. We most commonly see this, and we have fundraisers sometimes. Tuan Lay, who passed away a couple years ago, people will organize a run and we want to produce t-shirts. So they want to put the departmental insignia on there. Some people like to create those challenge coins to hand out to their team members. Again, they need authorization from the chief before they do that. Any questions on this section? Forwarding communications to higher commands. This has changed. Any member or employee receiving a communication, digital or physical, for transmission to a higher command shall forward such communication promptly. When forwarding digital communications such as emails, messages, or digital forms to higher command, members and employees must use the appropriate routing options to maintain the chain of command. A member or employee receiving a communication from a subordinate directed to a higher command shall indicate approval or disapproval through explicit endorsement statement in the forwarded email. For time-sensitive matters, members shall ensure communications are properly forwarded through appropriate channels with receipt confirmation when necessary. This is not a common one that we use, but sometimes you get these strange requests that just come in inappropriate ways via email or text. And so if it's a communication that needs approval or something legitimate, then it needs to go through the chain of command. And I just made it more modern by including email as part of the equation, saying something as simple as I approve and forwarding it to my lieutenant, I approve forwarding it to my captain, etc. That's sufficient for this section. All right, any questions on that? Improper dissemination of computer information, 356.89. Members and employees shall not disseminate information obtained from a departmental city computer without proper authorization from a commander. Requests to share or distribute information from departmental city computer systems must be submitted to a commander for approval. Authorization shall be provided in email for the commander before any such information is disseminated. unauthorized dissemination of Department of City computer info may result in disciplinary action. I don't really like that. This is a manual of rules, so that assumes that. So there are. I'll just refresh your memory on what we talked about here. So there are very serious confidential things that one can violate this section for, but also violate the law. So criminal information that I disclose, that Department of Justice can levy fines against me and misdemeanor charges.
Yep.
There are not so serious things such as, emails, like, let's just say me forwarding an email that I shouldn't have. It's not really criminal intelligence per se, but it has to do with OPD or City of Oakland matters only. And here I am forwarding it. This section would apply. Where we see this problem or have, people leaking things to the press.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's where it can get really bad. And or trying to help out a friend by giving them X, Y, and Z information.
Yep.
Yeah. So not common that we see this section, but it does happen. So
But when it's been embarrassing to law enforcement, has been around issues of race or sexism or whatever, when somebody sends an email that's, derogatory to some group or whatever, and people pass it all over the place.
yeah.
Oh, it's just we're having fun. That's what gives us a black eye. So
Yeah, indeed. All right, those are all the sections that we talked about a month ago. And so I figure we can move on to the 328 sections, which have to do with prohibited activity on duty. We can start with loitering, 328.14.
I'm curious about what is that?
Yeah. On-duty members and employees and off-duty members and employees in uniform shall not enter bars, taverns, or theaters except in such location. I'm sorry, except to perform a police task. Loitering and unnecessary conversation in such locations is forbidden. Eating in establishments where the primary purpose is the service of alcoholic beverages rather than food is discouraged, although not forbidden. Yeah, so. I mean, I've heard stories about this, like officers not doing their job. They'd rather hang out at a club. They act like it's a police function of keeping the peace, but it's really to goof off, if we will. So that's where loitering would apply. Overreaching, if you will, just where if you want to eat something, fine, eat and leave, but sitting there for hours and hours and hours for the wrong reasons is, yeah,
It's unfair. It's unfair to the other businesses.
yeah. As I read this, I mean, I can't even think of a recent case that it would involve this.
Very common down south.
Yeah.
Very common.
Yeah.
Cities like New Orleans,
Yeah.
Atlanta, and et cetera, Memphis, because police officers can go in the bars. They can, be in uniform and drink at a bar.
Mm.
When I witnessed that, I was like shocked.
Wow.
But very common.
Drink duty? Wow.
Yeah. I'm not on duty. I'm on my lunch.
Yeah.
I'm on code 7. But they had a bar having a beer.
Yeah, that's good.
And so it's just about culture, and
Yeah.
but that, and then you may walk into a nightclub in let's say New Orleans, and you'll find in full uniform a police officer there, and he's working a second job.
Yeah.
He's the bouncer.
Yeah.
So we just don't do that out here in California, or we haven't done it thus far. This makes sense.
Yeah, as I look at it though, it's been a minute since I've actually seen this section. I mean, it's really specific to bars, taverns, or theaters. I mean, I like to think that loitering anywhere is prohibited. It's not just limited to these three things.
Exactly. Hmm.
Well, if you're loitering on a corner and that's the dope track, you know, I get that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're loitering down there and that's the, you know, you in the trap, you know, you trying to prevent something, that makes sense to me.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's good policing. But they don't do that. They end up loitering in a place where there's no crime, but it gives the restaurant or the proprietor a sense of security in there, you know, because that police car's parked out front. Kind of special treatment.
Yeah. I'm going to take a shot at this and make it a little bit more modern, but maybe expand the scope a little. Again, you're right. And I think the key word is performing a police task. So hanging out in the corner, I mean, I can argue that's a police task. Sure.
Yeah. So we don't want to stop that.
Yeah.
We don't want to take away the initiative of a good beat officer that says, now I'm gonna spend an hour out here, you know, because I'm moving these people along.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to make this more modern and fix a little. Okay. Okay. Any other comments on that one? All right, tardiness 328 28. Members and employees shall report to duty at the time and place specified, properly uniformed and equipped.
Yeah, we're emergency, I mean, police officers and dispatchers too. I'd like to include them. I don't know what the union has to say about this, but if you're not on time, you're an emergency employee. You got to be on time. You must be on time. You must be on time.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, we do have issues with this, but I've never seen anyone really challenge the actual language here.
Well, there was a union agreement once in Berkeley that the dispatchers could not be considered late until 2 hours after their reporting time. That was ridiculous.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Wow.
How they agreed to that, I don't know, but it didn't last long. It lasted about 2 years. The next contract came in, and that was the first thing that was taken out. But it caused a great problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 hours. I mean, that's a quarter of my day right there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I have no change for that. So 328.28 is good. 328.35 relief. I feel like I'm missing one here. Let's up here. I'll come back to that. I think we talked about that one, but I'll come back. Relief, members, employees shall remain at their duty assignment until properly relieved by another member employee or until dismissed by competent authority. We have had this, we've had this, and it's associated usually with a critical or major incident. You know, like someone's on a traffic control post, for example, and you know it's the end of their shift or whatever it is, they leave, and then that position is now open, and that person was not properly relieved. I mean, this is a big deal in our world. Another example is sometimes we're guarding prisoners in the hospital. We can't just pick up and leave. There has to be relief to ensure the person does not escape. And you know, so.
There's common sense there.
Yeah. I don't have any issues with this section. 3. Absence from duty. Every member or employee who fails to appear for duty at the date, time, and place specified without the consent of a competent authority is absent without leave. Absences without leave in excess of 1 day shall be reported in writing to the chief of police. We do get this, but usually there's a legitimate reason behind it. There's usually a failure of communication somewhere in there. I mean, I guess we've had the absence without leave, the AWOL, as you may know it, for multiple days. I think I might change this. This is a reporting in writing. Report in writing. I would say that if someone's AWOL for more than 1 day, there's probably something more serious going along. I'm probably gonna write some more common language about that being a more exigent reporting response.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who is the person that is writing up this report to the chief or letter or whatever? I'm referring to the last sentence. Absences without leave in excess of 1 day shall be reported in writing to the chief of police. Who would be reporting that to the chief of police?
Yeah, that's a great question. It doesn't say here, and I think it should. Yeah. Because what can happen is a game of like, oh, I thought someone else was doing it, and then nothing gets done.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I would say, I mean, I'll have to think about this, but the person who is most common to deal with it is probably the immediate supervisor. And I think he or she shall be responsible for that. I think that makes the most sense.
I think so too.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Marcia Peterson,
Hey.
Chair
Hey,
Emeritus.
Marcia.
I'm joining late.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi.
Hello, Marcia.
All right.
And do we have a time period on when this matter should be reported to the chief of police? Like,
Yeah.
should the report be made within 1 day, within 24 hours?
I mean, I like to say, being that it's so easy to communicate in writing now, I really do think it should be immediate, as in upon knowing that the 1 day has been exceeded, it should be like that. Just because I assume the worst in these situations, especially if I'm unable to get a hold of that person, and that's where like waiting any longer than immediate is too long.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, yeah. Hey, I'll make it sound better than that, but
So how does this work? At the beginning of the shift, I guess there's a shift change. Does everyone meet in a particular room with their supervisor, and so you know who's here and who isn't here?
yeah, there's a roll call that happens, and it's the watch commander that holds it. So he or she will have the lineup, and then they will go down the list and name everyone's name, and they say here, and that's how we know.
So that person should probably maybe be communicating to the chief as well. They're probably the first person that knows that someone isn't coming in or hasn't been in a day. Well, the supervisor may know too.
Yeah, the supervisor's the
Trying to
first
think of
one asked. Yeah,
immediately.
it if so, I'll just as an example, like I'm the watch commander. I say a person's name and I get no answer. The first person I'm looking at is the supervisor. I'm saying, okay, do you know where this person is? And then their response is no, let me find out. So they're doing all the work. And the way our sick leave or leave policy works is you notify your immediate supervisor. So they're the ones who are supposed to know.
Okay. Thank you.
But I will put in there or commander because again, I think this is important enough not to get lost in translation. It's yeah, we've had some unfortunate circumstances as a result of someone being absent from duty and too much time has passed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 32856 physical fitness for duty. We already talked about false reporting of injury. So all members and employees shall maintain the necessary level of physical fitness to perform their duties. All right. This one is very controversial. Nobody really knows what this means. There's a lot of red tape, if you will, that falls in line with this. So this is not a subjective, like, I don't think you're fit for duty because of X, Y, and Z. There are test batteries at work and, psychological, physical, all these different things. So the way I've seen this in the past, and it's almost weird how it kind of fits within like almost punishment, where if someone's doing something that's a little bit out of ordinary, then they would be recommended for fitness for duty, but that would go through our human resource section and then proper protocols would be met. This is not, I think you're up to misconduct by fitness for duty and I'm reporting you. So that's the one weird thing about this section. I actually don't even like it in here. It doesn't make sense to me.
So is there a mechanism that checks on each and every officer to make sure that they are physically fit and mentally fit for duty? Like a once in a year examination?
No.
So if an officer is severely overweight, that just, and he can't perform his duties, nothing happens? I mean, is there a conversation? Do they have to go to the gym? I mean, what happens in those circumstances?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is why it's controversial. So ideally, this section gives me the leverage to do something about it, but there's a lot of pushback from it. I mean, just the unions. I mean, we tried this before. Other cities have tried this. It's not just a city of Oakland issue, and it becomes a problem.
And it's expensive, very expensive. In Berkeley, we had an issue with this about physical fitness. And so it ended up spending a lot of money with a team of physical therapists and doctors to maintain our weight and body fat density and tell us, how many push-ups you can do and how many setups you can do and all of that and give you an assessment and that was that. But it was just very expensive and they stopped doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is expensive, but suppose you have an officer who's out of breath and can't chase a suspect who's been accused of some heinous crime, and he couldn't catch.
Then I want him not to chase the suspect because he's going to end up dead one way or the other. Heart attack, or the suspect going to take his gun and hurt somebody or him.
That person was in physical shape, though. You wouldn't have to worry about that.
Not always. There's a whole lot of good well in shape officers that got taken out or beaten up out in the street. It's just no absolute. Because you're overweight doesn't mean you can't be an effective police officer, or because you're in shape doesn't mean that you are an effective police officer. It's such a gray area that it's just no way to absolutely and objectively tie it down. It seems like you could, but you can't.
Yeah. Okay.
But don't they have guidelines in the Department of Defense that cover just this thing to ensure that members are, yeah.
Yeah, the military is different. They do have guidelines like that, and you can be kicked out of the military if you especially the Marine Corps, if you are, you know, obese or physically unfit for duty. But I don't know that you can do that in law enforcement. And unions are just too powerful.
What's too powerful, Reg?
Unions.
Oh, well, a lot of this stuff we're going to have to bargain with the unions about. So we shouldn't be maybe concerned about that part as much as we are the fitness for duty of any officer. Because I'm like Kathy, it would seem to me you would want to know whether any officer's weight might impact their respiratory system, for instance, or if they have arrhythmia, what kind of concern you should have there. Have we ever considered looking at how the military tackles this and whether there's some method we could employ as well?
Yeah, like I said, they did do that. I went through it, and it was a great program, but it was just so expensive, and then people who were found to be out of shape, out of condition, sued and won. Because we couldn't prove that a person who's 5%, 10%, 20%, 30% overweight, or is any worse of an officer than an officer who's in tip-top physical conditioning. It just could not be. It's just too subjective.
Because I've seen some seriously overweight people dancing like they weigh 120 pounds. And when you would look at them, you would think, oh my God, they can't do the splits. They can't do this dance move, but they do it. So it is subjective.
It is very subjective. And consequently, because there's no absolute bottom line that you can articulate, it doesn't work. It's almost like that. They used to have a height requirement. Do Oakland still have a height requirement?
We don't. No, I think CHP does. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, they got rid of that height requirement because you couldn't say, oh, a guy is 5'6", so he can't do the policing that a person who's 6'4".
Okay, well then last question. Are you aware of whether the CHP has any fitness for duty guidelines?
I can find out. I know San Francisco tried. I cannot think of what agency that has a fitness for duty program, but I might be wrong.
And then the issue about when women came into law enforcement, that's what they used to prevent women to get into law enforcement.
Right. Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
and they lost that.
Well, I could see that. They should, but okay. Well, I was just curious, trying to fully vet.
Yeah, the only test that we have is actually in the academy. So California Post does have a physical fitness requirement. And you literally can fail out of the academy by not meeting that requirement. And we've had that. And it's not even people being out of shape. Like they have to scale a 6-foot wall, both chain link and solid wood. And people are in great shape, but struggled to get over that wall. And they literally fail out of the academy because of it. So that's the only test that one has to take in their entire career that measures their fitness level.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. Now when I was in training, we tried, somewhat organic things, as in we can't make you exercise, but we're going to kind of create a culture of fitness and health. So I mean, thanks to the commission, I know we talked about this publicly, but bringing in healthy food into our wellness center and setting up free workout classes that people can go to and learn and consult with different people. So we just trying to create a more healthy environment. That's the one thing is we promote lifetime fitness, but then you walk downstairs and there's candy and cookies and cakes everywhere. It's like, no, we can't have it both ways. Like we have to create a culture of it. And for the most part, it's getting better, but yeah, we still have our struggles. But this is a very difficult section to enforce.
So what do you suggest that we delete it?
Well, like I said, it kind of gives someone leverage, and it's not so much even the physical aspect of it. You know, there's some mental issues that that some of our members go through, and we use this as leverage for supervisors to do something. As in, we're this almost, instead of like me, the officer, being physically fit, mentally well, it forces my immediate commander to pay attention to me. And if I'm not performing to that level, they have to do something about it. And that's why I do like it here, because it keeps everyone accountable for their peers.
When we had the case of the officer shooting in the elevator,
Yeah.
would this have been where the supervisor could send that officer for fitness for duty exam?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a great example of that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just bookmark this. I'm gonna do some more research, because I am interested now if other agencies have a fitness for duty and what that looks like. So I do want to come back to that. So I'll just highlight this. Intoxicants on departmental premise. Members and employees shall not at any time be under the influence of any intoxicating substance while on duty.
For a second,
Yeah.
sorry, I thought that my I didn't know my phone was muted. So you have physical fitness for duty. So it should be physical and mental fitness for duty, or are you saying that mental is being encapsulated under physical fitness? Because it's really two different things.
Yeah, it should be the same. Right now it's encapsulated, but I do want to update it so it's physical and psychological.
Fitness for duty.
Yes,
Yes.
psychological. Yes, that's a better word. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're gonna making a note on that for 328.56. Okay.
Okay.
You know, having a fitness for duty requirement and enforcing it are two different things also.
Yeah.
So we can have it on the books and make it look like it has some teeth to it when in fact it doesn't. Because, you know, if a person is overweight, or let's say a person is displaying some odd behavior, and you may think they're a little depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Major.
That's where I'm more concerned. and to get people to step up and do something about it.
And that would be the purpose of this 328.56, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
No.
I'm thinking it's 328.56 is there, and it's categorically ignored. I'm just being pragmatic, because it's too hard to get a handle.
It's a qualification to get into the police department, but it's not a qualification that you need to maintain once you become an officer.
Right. And so the people who cause us most problems in society, who happens to be in law enforcement, are the ones that have been there 5 or 6 years and have some issue going on with them. And everybody sees it and notices it and watches it and gossips about it and murmurs about it, but they don't do anything. So the challenge for us is what can we write in here to motivate people? And it's primarily sergeants and lieutenants and captains to make a step, to do something.
I agree, particularly that you're saying that the person is only tested for physical fitness for duty when they're in the academy.
And
once you're in
also.
the department, there's no test for physical fitness for duty.
And I want to say mental test too, because they go through the psychological exam early on before they get in the department also.
Right,
So,
but the assumption is that once you clear that hurdle, when you're in the academy, that you're physically fit and mentally fit for the duration of your employment because there's no testing.
And we
And I
know that's not true.
testing, and there's the monetary factor, but that's the reality of the situation.
There's a
That there's a percent
I'm sorry.
that you're okay once you're in the door.
There's a case
That's
going on right now in Sacramento, so it's very close to us, where a 71-year-old woman was being released from jail, and 4 officers was walking her out of the jail, and this one officer who had her arm in a chicken wing and pushing her out, and she was going, "Why you treat me like this? Why you treat me like this?" And then he shoved her and pushed her on the ground. She broke her femur. And of course, she hasn't done the civil suit yet, but because of the body camera and the cameras outside of the police department saw the whole thing, they know exactly the officer involved, this guy named Greenwich. So of course, Sacramento County District Attorney is filing a criminal complaint against them for assault. And so I would submit to you, it's purely speculation, that that guy has probably shown some behavior pattern and something's going on with him. Why would you throw an old woman, 71-year-old woman out on the sidewalk like that? What is going on with you? You weren't threatened, you weren't hurt in any kind of way. What's happening in your head?
That's where I'm going.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Right. He's mentally unfit to serve as an officer.
Well,
I agree with that.
If that's what to an elderly person who's in a sensitive age category.
but at least he needs to be sent for a fit. I'm hearing that that this provision could be used to send that officer as a preliminary step for a fitness for duty exam or not. Where does this come in?
Yeah, but the problem is this section says physical only. It doesn't say psychological.
No. We're gonna change that. We know that needs to be physical and mental.
Okay.
We know that. And I'm asking whether or not this is what is used as a preliminary step to a removal of this officer or not. Where does this come in?
Yeah, I mean, and so that's how it works. So if this section is levied against me, there's allegations, and let's say through a battery of tests, I get sustained. I guess this gives the city authority to release me. Yes.
Okay.
It puts it on the track. I mean, it's just kind of a weird way of doing it, as in it's almost like I'm using this as punishment as opposed to just getting you help, and so that's why it just doesn't sit right with me when I read it.
Well, it also could be something mitigating for the officer. He said, I passed the mental fitness for duty exam.
Yeah, but that was 30 years ago.
No, in the instance, if we use the example Reggie threw out, and that officer has to have in OPD, you have to, I don't know whether, and I'm asking whether this is a step, if we were to put physical and mental fitness for psychological fitness for duty. Physical and psychological fitness for duty.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should leave the physical alone and just talk about where our problem is. And the problem is, how can we catch these guys who are going through something mentally, early on to be examined? Because I don't think we're going to win the physical fight because it's been fought in court and we've lost already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking really, Reg, about the physical. I'm using your example
Yeah.
of the Sacramento issue, that it is a psychological. This would be physical or psychological fitness for duty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And or. And in that instance, are you Captain Hubbard or Lieutenant Hubbard? It's been a while.
I'm acting deputy chief today.
Oh boy. Okay. Acting Deputy Chief Hubbard. Is this often used as a two-step, or would it be, if we added psychological, be used as a two-step before you can process an officer who has engaged in the kind of activity that Reggie described? Do you have to send that officer through a psychological? We don't want to create more in the disciplinary process, maybe in this instance, than is necessary. Maybe it is just, hey, he pushed somebody and shouldn't have. We don't care what your psychological state was. I mean, are we about to step into something wholly unnecessary in the processing of a case like the one Reggie described?
I think I could see a lot of fear from supervisor and commander just trying not to be too subjective. It's like, oh, you did this because you are suffering from an illness, and here we are, making pretty damaging remarks, or what could be, when, let's just say, they're having a bad day. So
Right.
I don't want it to be where anytime an officer engages in misconduct, then we're then considering fitness for duty to be correlated to that. Yeah.
Right.
I did find this information bulletin actually was published in 2023. I knew it was in there somewhere. There is a fitness for duty evaluation, and this is not just physical. So it's, they talk about psychological fitness for duty evaluation, but this actually came as a result of that previous example you gave about the elevator. This is why this was drafted. So requests for this may be submitted to the executive team, which is the chief and the deputy chiefs, and then it's managed through the risk management. So I'll send this to all of you, but here's an example of impairments that may warrant the city's request for this. Observe problems with vision, awareness, coordination, dexterity, emotional disturbances, unpredictable mood, behavioral changes, drowsiness, sleepiness, or other signs of fatigue, other physical or psychological conditions or behavior that affects the member's ability to practice their job functions successfully and safely, and could impact the safety of those who work around them. So as I look at this, I mean, using the example of the officer unable to chase someone down or run up stairs to provide CPR to someone, as an observer of that, this gives me then the authority to then make recommendation through the executive team.
Okay.
Sorry,
Great.
Kathy, I see your hand up.
Can you tell me what abbreviation stands for?
Sorry, your phone broke.
I think there's some connectivity issues.
Can you hear me now?
It's,
Hello?
yeah, that's stronger.
A little bit better, yeah.
Can you tell me what what that abbreviation stands for? Those initials.
Yeah, fitness for duty evaluation, FDE. And then psychological fitness for duty, PFFDE. Yeah, it's a little bit. I'll send this to all of you so you can.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we ought to really focus in on is that psychological. If we were to get something like this, not only in black and white, and it is in black and white, but get it culturally enforced by the supervisors and commanders, the officer, the rank and file, would be better off, because if you catch them early, most of these guys can right themselves. before they overreact. And I didn't really mean to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I would agree. And speaking of physical, I mean, every member here, employee, is an investment of the city. And if we can offset injuries by wellness, it helps with our retention. We talk about new academies all the time, and we should, but I also want to focus on retention, and injuries and illness are the leading cause of people who are on medical leave, and we can prevent that. So it all plays the same. Okay. You know what I'll do is I think I'm going to incorporate a lot of this. Kathy, I still see your hand up. Any other questions from you? Comments?
No, I'm sorry. I lowered.
Thank you. I'm going to incorporate some of this but I think more importantly, I think the way I look at this is that there is a duty. And so when I review the onus, I think, are on the subject employees to maintain the necessary level, but I also think that there's responsibility for peers and supervisors, commanders, managers to observe this behavior and report it accordingly.
Yes.
So I'd rather add to this and make sure that physical, psychological observations and reporting requirements. Okay, good. Uh, okay.
A sheriff's deputy has reportedly been.
Research. Okay, great. All right. Probably not coincidental that this follows this one, but members and employees shall not at any time be under the influence of any intoxicating substances while on duty, carry any firearm while consuming or under the influence of any intoxicating substance, consume any intoxicating substance while off duty to the extent that when reporting for his or her duty assignment, the ability to perform their duty is impaired, or consume any intoxicating substance while on duty unless necessary in the performance of a police task, and then only with the specific permission of a commanding officer and never in uniform.
And that's kind of like that last stuff had to do with undercover.
That's right. It would be under that, although I still disagree with that for many reasons, but still.
What do you mean by you still disagree with it?
I mean, you're doing a police function, although undercover, and you need to be
Alert.
you need to have you have good mental status for you to report truthfully and accurately on the evidence that you're collecting. And so, I mean, by
Right.
inviting alcohol into the equation, then puts that in jeopardy. Even if the officer is like doing everything on the up and up, I mean, that would be in question come court time. Is like, well, how much alcohol did you drink when you're gathering all this evidence against my client?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But anyway, that's a personal thing for me. But we don't do really undercover work like this anymore, so I don't really see that as an issue. So I would say, like, obviously the while on duty, we've had a few cases like that I have reported on. There are obviously some deeper issues there, not just consumption of intoxicants on duty, but we have had that. This one of the first, so if an officer gets arrested for driving under the influence or arrested for drunk in public off duty, one of the things that we look for is whether they were carrying a firearm off duty when doing it. That would be a significant, serious violation for obvious reasons. Yeah, we've had this too. Intoxication, even though off duty, it carried over to when they reported on duty. And I will say I'm pleased about this is that the most that I can think of, their peer, um, they're the peers of the officer are the ones who reported it. So there was no cover-ups. It was the officers recognizing it and coming forward and saying, "Hey, this officer's intoxicated." So I'm pleased to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that too.
Yeah.
Well done.
Okay, any questions on this? I mean, as I guess now that I read it, I always think of intoxicants as alcohol only, but obviously we're talking about any narcotics or so is that clear to everyone as you read this that intoxicants can mean many different things, or should I expand on that more?
Well, it came to mind earlier. Yeah, I was thinking alcohol, but it's not just alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, the use of the word substance clears that up.
Really?
Yeah, because substance could be liquid, it could be a cigarette, it could be a marijuana stick. Substance could be it's broad.
Oh, well, see, when I thought of intoxicating substance, I was only thinking alcohol. Would
Oh.
the average layperson think that's just alcohol, or that when you add the word substance, that brings in controlled substances?
Yeah, I'm thinking even cough syrup. Taking too much cough syrup is not, can impair your driving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so
I'm thinking all of it.
And when you see intoxicating substance, that in your mind, that encompasses all of that. That's
All
not
of it.
bad.
Alcohol, cocaine, syrup, because these especially to this cadre of people, they're trained on that. When they make traffic stops, that being under the influence includes all of those things, not just alcohol.
And is there a definition section related to this?
no, there's not. I'm actually looking for, I remember there was a memo written when marijuana became legal and how officers are supposed to engage in that off duty, et cetera, that it's supposed to be banned across the board. So I'm looking for that, just if it's more clear. Um, yeah, I'll have to do some research. I know I've seen it before. Metal? No, that's not it. Well, I'll find it. Yeah, I mean, to Deacon Lyle's point, I mean, I talk about this a lot. People coming to work very ill and they're, taking medication, and it's like our jobs are too critical for us to be consuming something and
Right.
to suck it up coming to work sick. And here you are under the influence, and that alters your mindset to where if you get an officer involved shooting, it's like, are you in good mental status to think through that? And, so it can mean many different things.
And it should be broad like this.
Yeah.
So although alcohol is the most common abused substance in this particular group, but it could be anything.
Okay. Let me just make a note here. I have not seen this challenged, as in this section only related to alcohol. So I kind of use that as a barometer of what we're talking about here tonight. Is like if a lawyer picked this apart before, then I would be concerned, but I haven't seen that.
Okay.
But anyway, I'll still look into it. Just all right. Intoxicants on departmental premises. Members and employees shall not bring into or keep any intoxicating substance on departmental premises except when necessary in the performance of a police task. Package goods for temporary storage in a locker space when the seals are unbroken, or intoxicants brought into department premises in the furtherance of a police task shall be properly identified and stored according to current policy. I don't know what that policy is. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Brought into the department in the furtherance. Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's for like evidence. Okay, I can understand that. I got it now. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced this before. Uh, Usually it's associated with the previous one we talked about, where there's drinking on duty, let's say. Uh, like around the holidays, of course, people give alcohol to others as a gift, which again, I disagree for many reasons, because it's an unfortunate part of the police culture is alcohol. Uh, so bullet point number 2, I guess, allows for that, assuming that it's unbroken. Yeah, I don't any questions about this one? Okay.
Oh, can you go back a minute?
Yeah.
Well, again, when you have your Christmas parties or and a gift is given and it's a bottle of wine, what happens?
Nothing. It's just the way it's here. It's temporary in a locker space when this is, so it needs to be unbroken, so it's still sealed.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really like how it's worded. I think I'm gonna word that a little bit better. Um, I mean, it needs to be sealed also for transport home, assuming you're bringing it home, which you should. Then it becomes an open container in the car argument. So that's why it needs to stay sealed. So police officers are supposed to know that. Yeah.
But you can have an open container in your trunk, can't you? As
You
long as it's
can.
not in the body of your car.
You can. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of these attorneys that defend officer misconduct make arguments like, well, it doesn't say he can't use his personal funds to pay a witness because that language wasn't in there.
Yeah, yeah, that was.
So I don't, you really we have to be careful about, dotting these I's and crossing these T's.
That was probably the worst defense ever
Yep, but it was the defense
in
that
the
got,
history of the world, in the history of law enforcement.
yes.
Thinking defense was too, but it prevailed.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this?
No, if you can tighten it up, we'd appreciate it. I don't know what more we can say, but except, yeah.
Ugh. Okay.
At any time and at all times, the seal cannot be broken.
Okay.
Okay.
32877. Tobacco products while on duty. On-duty members and employees shall not use any tobacco products, including but not limited to cigarettes, cigars, pipes, snuff, or chewing tobacco while in direct contact with the public within any city facility, city vehicle, within any public building, or within 25 feet of an entrance, open window or air vent of any city building. The littering or improper disposal of tobacco remnants or byproducts is prohibited.
What were the circumstances under why this was included?
I
I've never heard of banning you from using tobacco products unless you're
Yeah.
around flammable.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I know smoking was a lot more prominent when I first started, not so much anymore. Just in today's society, tobacco has definitely decreased, but a lot of these somewhat militaristic manual of rules sections kind of were gleaned from the military. And so, like the military, you can't smoke while in uniform, for example. And I know that was adopted here. I think it has to do with the look of it. I mean, I think it's unprofessional for an officer to be smoking a cigarette while taking a crime report from a victim. But also there's California law now about, when and where one can smoke. So it also encapsulates that. I can't name one person anymore that I've seen smoke. And so it's not really an issue anymore, but I know that chewing tobacco is really, I mean, to me, it's quite disgusting, but, you sitting there chewing tobacco while communicating with someone, I think is unprofessional, and spitting in a cup of the remnants is, so there's an image with it that goes.
I could certainly see it with snuff and chewing tobacco, but it was just interesting that it's extended to cigarettes. But that makes sense. It's an image. It's an image
Yeah.
issue.
Very Oklahoma, Missouri,
Yeah.
Texas,
Yeah.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
I like this section,
How do
actually.
you all feel about e-cigarettes?
Yeah.
I
like
don't,
it.
Yeah.
I would not exclude them. Are you talking about like vaping?
Vaping, yeah. Yeah.
So does the police department have a rule against smoking for officers?
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, put vaping in there too.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it looks unprofessional. It's also unhealthy. I mean, we can all agree on that, but
Yeah.
So it's both for health and
Going to clubs because the smoking was just unbearable. And then that law was introduced and I was like, oh my God, I'm saved.
yeah.
Trying to eat at a nice restaurant with cigarette smoke all around was not good.
Then when you travel the country, you know the difference.
But you know what was so funny? They had the smoking section of the airplane.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was insane. Like the stay back there.
Yep.
Times have changed, haven't they?
I'm gonna
Thank
put
goodness.
unlit cigarettes. Some people like have that unlit look to them. I don't know what it is, but carry around with a cigar in their mouth, but it's not lit. I mean, to me, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So
I think it says inlet. You meant unlit.
yeah, my notes. Slate. All right. Possession of keys or proximity cards, key cards. No member employee, unless authorized by a competent authority, shall possess keys or proximity cards to any premises not his or own or in or near his or area of assignment.
What's a proximity?
Yeah, explain that one.
It's the electronic key that gets you in. So they call it a proxy card. Just, we don't use keys much anymore. So if you come up to the 8th floor where I'm at now to get into the chief's office, I have a card that I buzz in.
Oh,
So if you're not authorized to have that card, you cannot have it.
That's right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with this. I think mainly it's when people move to a different assignment, not deactivating that card or giving up their keys. I think that's where the issues are.
Well, you should add that.
Okay.
People who change locations have a certain period of time to deactivate their card or key or pad.
and you can't hand over your, go and get my lunch out of my office. Here's my card key, kind of thing.
I'm sorry.
There's a meeting of some sort, just so that you can get the keys. And instructions on their new assignment. That should all kind of take place at that first meeting, if there is such a thing.
Should we add without permission?
Well, if you had it and didn't turn it in, you can't really say it's not without permission. The
No,
permission
I was
never.
trying to respond to Marcia's statement. If the chief says to you, here, possess this key for a short period of time, go into my office and get such and such, you're not violating this regulation.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's authorized by a competent authority.
Okay, there you go. I'm sorry, I should have read that. Understood that. All right. Here it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll update it. The key card issue is, there's really only a couple places that we like the range, for example, where all the firearms are. Only limited people have that in the chief's office. It's very restricted, but everything else is somewhat, if you work here, you have access to. But it's one of those things where if they don't want Brian Hubbard to have access anymore, they just turn off his name. It's really that simple because it's a computerized system.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it easier.
Definitely. Is this the last one? Yeah, last one. All right. Address and telephone numbers. We had issues with this. Members and employees are required to have a phone number, landline or mobile, and their current resident address and phone numbers on file with the department, whether working or on leave. Changes in address or phone number shall be reported on the appropriate form within 24 hours of the change and forwarded to the personnel section. Surprisingly, we've had issues with this, and it usually comes in the form of they're being disciplined for something else. We need to serve them discipline. We can't get a hold of them. We realize that they moved and they never told us. In cases of emergency, we try to get a hold of people and their phone number no longer works. So that's usually how these things come up. It's rare, but it does happen. Now with mobile phones, it's not hard for us to track people down because someone has their phone number, and I usually know how to get a hold of that person who will tell me. But yeah, we do take this very seriously for many reasons. We haven't had a major critical incident here, but in case of an earthquake or fire, we absolutely need to get a hold of people to come in and help. And having this updated is critical. And also just for their safety, if an officer gets hurt, we literally drive to their home to notify their family, and having an accurate address is very important to us for those reasons. So they don't hear from the news that someone got injured without us first notifying them.
Yeah.
Are they conducting any business on their, any OPD business on their landline or mobile line, or do they have a company issued phone?
They have a departmental issued phone, yeah. Yeah, that
So the need for a mobile and landline is just for a case of emergency or something.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and because we only require them to use their work phone while on duty. So off duty, we need to have their personal and home address for emergencies. Yeah.
They turn in their department issue phone at the end of the shift.
They don't. They keep them, but they just turn them
Oh.
off often.
I see. Okay.
I want to do that, but I can't, so I leave mine on. But yeah, but not everyone. All right, any changes to this one?
I don't see any
Yeah.
that need to be made.
Okay, great. All right. So that's all I had for tonight. I have a lot to do before our next meeting with all these changes, and I will figure out what we're going to talk about next, but we're moving right along.
Great.
Micah, any words from
And-
you before we depart this evening?
No, there's nobody in the other room, and I think you guys are good. Very robust conversation tonight.
Thank
Great.
you, Micah.
All right. Any other comments from anyone else before?
When is our next meeting?
The next meeting is going to be, we have the meetings every first,
Second,
no,
third.
excuse me, every second and
Second and fourth?
yeah, second and fourth.
All
Oh,
right.
I thought it was
Just
first
probably
and
my
third.
calendar.
The first and third, did I get that backwards? We have another group that's for, yeah, it's first and third. I'm sorry, it's like
Third,
almost
okay.
8 o'clock. I'm exhausted, as most of you are. It is going, today is the 21st, so this is the 3rd. Yes, so your next meeting is going to be, hold on, I'm looking at my calendar.
June 5th,
It's going to be June 4th.
4th?
Yeah, Wednesday, June 4th is a Wednesday.
Okay.
First and third.
Okay, I have that on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Great.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.